Hello and welcome to Mysteries of Science. My name's Dan and I'm the editor of The Week Junior Science and Nature, which is the monthly magazine from the team behind The Week Junior.
And I'm Michael, the features editor. On this podcast, we investigate weird events, strange creatures, and mysterious places.
Now, Michael, we're recording this in the morning and you've told me, heard that you haven't had your breakfast.
No, I'm very, very hungry.
It's not a good plan. Got to eat properly. It's the most important meal of the day. Yes, exactly. Well, why don't you have this here, my cereal bar. I brought it in to have as a snack for later, but you know, if it helps, you can have it.
That is very altruistic of you, Dan.
Sorry, that's very, very what?
Altruistic.
You're going to have to explain that one for me, I'm afraid. What's altruistic mean?
Well, altruism is when you do something kind for somebody, even if it comes at a cost to yourself. Now, many animals do this in the animal kingdom, and it has perplexed scientists for years, because after all, we're told that nature is a brutal battle for survival, and if so, then why be nice? Why be nice? Well, that's a very good question, and I think we ought to speak to some very kind scientists to help us find the answers to that. This is Mysteries of Science. So Dan, altruism. Where do we start?
Well, Michael, you had a very good go at describing what it was in the intro. That really helped me understand it. But if we talk to some experts, they might help us define it in perhaps some more scientific terms.
So, hi, I'm Irene Garcia-Ruiz, and I'm a biologist specialized in animal behavior. And I'm a researcher currently at Columbia University in New York City.
Hi, Irene. Tell me, please, tell us all, what's altruism?
So when we talk about altruism, we talk when an organism and an individual helps others, even at a cost or risk to itself. So, for instance, when we look at humans, a cost can be money, but also time investment or even risking our own lives. So it basically is something that benefits others and it has a cost to ourselves.
Okay, so I think a key point to make here is that kindness is not the same as altruism.
But what's the difference between them then?
So altruism comes at a cost. So you can do something kind for somebody, but if it doesn't come at a cost to yourself, then it's not altruistic.
Oh, I get it. So if I gave, or do I get it? I don't know. If I give you the cereal bar, like I did, would that be kindness or would that be altruism?
Well, Dan, it depends. Is this your only cereal bar? By you giving me the cereal bar, are you going hungry, or do you have another cereal bar hidden away somewhere?
Oh, right. Okay. So if I had 2 cereal bars and I gave you one of them, that'd be a nice thing to do. The kindness. Yeah? But if I only had one and the giving of that one would leave me hungry later on in the morning, then that would be altruism, right?
Exactly. And I'm now even hungrier than I was earlier.
Yes. Well, I'm really interested to find out what's the kindest thing or the most altruistic thing that you have ever done.
Yes, you can send us a voice note by going to funkidslive.com/mysteries and hitting the big red button. Your voice could be on a future episode.
Well, I think we know what altruism is now. Irena, could you give me an example of this behavior in the animal kingdom?
Another very good example comes from vampires. But not Dracula vampires, so there is vampire bats. And vampire bats feed on blood, as the name says. And the problem they have is that they cannot survive very long without eating. So they have to eat basically every day. So what happens is an individual cannot find food or get sick or something like that cannot eat, then it may starve to death. So other bats give them food by regurgitating, like vomiting blood in their mouth so that they will not die from starvation. And yeah, this is also very interesting because this behavior, of course, puts them again also in risk of starvation. But what they do is like they exchange, like, okay, I scratch your back and you scratch mine, right? So I give you today food because you are in need, in the expectation that maybe tomorrow when I am in need, you will return the favor.
Yeah, suddenly I'm not so hungry anymore.
what a bizarre example, but like really good one. I love the grossness of it all. I'm not very hungry about after hearing that. I do have one question.
What's that, Dan?
Well, Irena said the bats are doing out of hope that somebody might return the favour. So my question is that true altruism? I mean, she said, if it's a bit, I scratch. No, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
You vomit in my mouth, I'll vomit in yours.
Yes, exactly. Well, maybe they're getting some benefit for it.
So this is a good question, and I would say under evolution, no. And this is because evolution, how Darwin would say, like the survival of the fittest, is when a trait makes you more likely to survive or to reproduce, then those traits can pass to your offspring and then they spread. But if some trait like altruism is only costly for you, then you will die more likely than other individuals that are not altruistic, and then this trait will be eliminated from the population. So that means that ultimately every altruistic behavior has to have some benefit for the actor.
Okay, so let's break this down. I think we need to explain a little bit about evolution and this idea of survival of the fittest. So over time, species change or evolve, is that right?
Yes, and these changes are caused by something which Irena just mentioned, natural selection. So some members of a species might have a certain trait or characteristic which is different to other members of their species.
Yeah, right. So this trait, for example, I don't know, being able to run faster helps those members of the species that can run faster to survive, while other slower members of their species might die out.
Yes, and because only the faster ones are left, that means they reproduce, and so over time the species has evolved to become a lot quicker.
Gotcha. So it seems that Irena is suggesting that altruism is like also a characteristic or a trait that can be passed down, and it can also help species to survive.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense. If altruism made you weak or vulnerable, then those who were altruistic would die out, and then only those who were mean and didn't help people would survive.
Okay, this is sort of getting a little less mysterious, I think, to me at least. So we've talked about it in animals, this altruistic behaviour, but what about in humans? Do we do altruistic things?
Well, Dan, why don't we bring in our next expert who can actually tell us how science is able to measure the effect of altruism in our brains.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Michael Platt, and I'm a professor and scientist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I study neuroscience, which is the study of how our brains work. I study psychology, and I also study marketing. And so I'm really delighted to be here.
Right, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you.
Well, we've got two Michaels on, not you. Michael, I've got to be careful about which one I'm referring to. We've got Michael D, who's sitting in the studio with me, and Michael P. So, Michael?
Yes?
No, not you, the other Michael.
Sorry.
So, Michael P. Irena has given us an example of why animals are altruistic. But what about humans?
So this is where the brain science comes in, which is really interesting. So in general, all of the behaviors that we or any other animal engage in are what we call motivated. So there is some motivation, some expectation of reward or satisfaction upon completing that act. And there are actually specific pathways in our brains that carry those motivational signals. You might have heard of dopamine. So dopamine is a really important chemical that gets released when we satisfy something, when we engage in an action that does something good for us. It makes the world a little bit better. And what's been found in terms of what happens in our brains even, and in the brains of animals, is that when we give to some, like a charity that we care about, that this dopamine, this reward pathway gets activated. And that's what actually provides the motivation and the drive to make that behavior happen.
So there you go, scientifically proven it feels nice to be nice.
Right, okay. feels nice to be nice. That's good. You get the kind of hit or warm glow feeling when you do something nice for somebody else. But I'm coming back to my old question. Is that really 100% altruism? If I get a good, nice feeling from doing something nice, then there's a benefit to me, right?
This sort of warm glow we get, when you help somebody and you feel good about it, that the people who are really, the philosophers who really care about altruism would say, well, that's not really altruism because you felt something good, right? So it gave you something back. But from an evolutionary perspective, from a brain science perspective, that all makes sense. That's just how it works and why we even see it throughout the animal kingdom.
But if it feels so good to be good, then why be bad? Where does meanness come from?
No, I mean, I think this is the fascinating part about human nature. It's the fascinating part about monkey nature, why I spend, most of my life studying monkeys, is that we are a delicate balance of cooperation and competition. So at its core, evolution works through sort of selfishness, as you might imagine. It's like you've got to get limited resources. You got to get food, you got to get water, etc., in order to survive and ultimately reproduce. When you start to live in groups, okay, then that becomes a lot trickier. And the reason that animals or people live in groups is because groups can provide protection against other groups or against predators. But then when you're in a group, there's this struggle between acting selfishly, but also acting in ways to support things like group cohesion and to have friends and allies who can help you out. And that's what's so fascinating about people. And that's the drama we see on TV and in movies and in books is all about that balance of cooperation and competition.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. I think we can all relate to that because some days you're feeling really positive and friendly and you can go out your way to help other people. And other days you're just kind of feeling a bit crabby, a bit grumpy, and perhaps on those days you really only care about yourself.
I think we can all relate to that. And if you think about it, when you're really sometimes when you're really stressed out or you're really in need or you're super hungry, let's say, and you get hangry, you're going to be more self-motivated. You're going to if there's a donut on the table, you're going to grab it before anybody else does. But if your needs have already been satisfied, then it's a lot easier to be more cooperative and to be more altruistic.
Donuts. Now I'm hungry again.
Doing your Homer impression there. It certainly beats vampire bats.
Absolutely.
Right, so I think we covered quite a lot there, and the mystery around altruism seems to be dissipating a little bit. We're discovering a little bit more about it. But what don't we know about altruism still? What mysteries are still waiting to be solved?
What we don't understand as well is why do some people seem to be more pro-social or altruistic than other people? Some are more selfish, some are more giving, right? How much of this is a product of kind of the genes you're born with, kind of what you got from your parents in terms of DNA, and how much is a product of the environment which you grew up in, what you learned, your culture, and things like that. So those are some unknowns, but I think we know more than we don't know at this point.
Right, I think it's time we bring out the mysteryometer.
Yeah, exactly. It's about this point that we bring out our method for deciding on how well solved a mystery is. For regular listeners to Mysteries of Science, you'll know all about this, but if this is the first episode you've ever seen, it's basically a scale from 0 to 100. 0 means that we just don't know anything. The thing is still a mystery. And 100 means that we've actually unraveled the mystery and the case is closed. So I wonder, Michael, where our experts think we are on this scale when it comes to our knowledge of the mystery of altruism.
Maybe 50-50.
I think we're the needle's pretty far toward, it's beyond 50%, maybe 70% or something like that.
Okay, so there's a lot that we know, but as we heard, there's still more to discover.
There's always more to discover, isn't there? Especially when it comes to human behaviour. It's still a mystery to most of us.
Yes, send us a voice note at funkidslive.com/mysteries, and you could appear in a future episode of Mysteries of Science.
And speaking of future episodes, don't forget to join us in another 2 weeks' time for our next episode.
Yes, it's the last episode of Season 8, and we're going to be answering your mysteries with some expert guests.
Until then, stay altruistic. Oh, cheese-tastic.